An Untraveled Road by Nyan Zangetsu, Chapter 14, Becoming the Beast. Some people say life is precious, like a rose. It is something to be preserved, to be protected. But you've changed things, so many things. There's no going back now. See to them. You're just a freak, like me. The future. Become the beast. Marcus Black had always feared the dark. Ever since he was but a boy, he held a deep and primordial fear of the shadows. It wasn't the gloom that terrified him per se, it was what might lie within. Monsters lurked in the dark, not just grim, but his every doubt, his every fear made manifest. Fear that he wouldn't be good enough, fear that he wouldn't make a mother proud, fear that he would die as he'd lived. Nothing, nobody, no one. It was here in the dark that he was at his weakest. He should have been a Schnee. Instead, by an accident of birth, he became black. He was meant to be someone, but he was cast out, forgotten, disgraced, all because of his mother and her wretched schemes. He, who had been born with the most powerful semblance in the world, was forced to bow and scrape and serve. Well, no more. He had plans, big plans. But now, much like the floor of the Schnee estate, those plans crumbled. Marcus! A golden hand closed around his face and smashed him down through the floor, sending him spiraling into the darkness. He flailed at his attack as he fell into the murk, howling his fury. Rubble came tumbling down atop them as they fell, forcing the two warriors apart lest they both be crushed. He spat at the shadow clone as it vanished somewhere among the fallen debris, then pivoted to face the cold stone below. By some miracle, he managed to get his feet out under him in time, but only just. Ugh! Pain shot through his legs as the impact jarred his knees, sending shivers of impact racing down his spine. He straightened immediately and flung himself away into the dark, fearing a counterattack that never came. Bits of broken rock tumbling down to the floor. Nothing more. Nothing came of it. Nothing at all. And damn it all, everything had gone wrong. Where the hell was that bitch Salem sent? A dull splat answered as the humanoid form crashed to the floor beside him. Nope, time to get out of here. He stole a glance to the gaping hole above his head. Ought to be easy to get back up there, but did he want to? Better to slip away in the darkness while he could. He stood with a groan. His voice echoed in the empty room. Beneath the Schnee Manor was not a moldy old basement as he'd suspected, but rather a sprawling expanse of. He didn't know what this was. Coffins? But why would there be coffins down here? What possible purpose could they serve? He ran his hand across one, baffled by it. A thin film of dust came away under his hand, and beneath it he found an inscription. Here lies Nathaniel Schnee, beloved father and grandfather. And beside it another. Here lies Winfred Schnee, beloved mother and grandmother. Marcus jerked back, feeling scalded. What was this place? This was no wine cellar. This was something altogether worse, much worse. His gaze fell upon another row of coffins, then another, followed by yet another, each stretching out into the distance and infinitum. His gorge rose. This is no cellar. It's and something in the darkness answered. A tomb. Like an avenging angel, Nicholas crashed down from on high. Cleave flicked out in a lazy stroke and bit deep into Marcus's collarbone. There was no word of warning, not even a flicker of movement. The Warden of Atlas fell from on high and struck true. Folded steel swept through aura, then skin, followed by bone. An awful crunch filled the basement. If one were to squint, they might see an arm alongside a good bit of Marcus's shoulder and spin away into the dark. They would certainly hear the scream that followed him. Black dropped to his knees with a yowl to clutch at his bloodied side. He couldn't heal from this, not in time. His aura, already low from fighting, was barely enough to stem the bleeding. What have you done? His voice tore through the crypts in a low howl. You've maimed me. These aren't just cellars. He heard a dull thud of his boots as father circled him. They're catacombs. Generations of Schnee are housed in this place. I moved the remains myself. The boots stomped, and that ghastly greatsword filled his vision. My father was buried here, and his father before him. A time-eaten sigh pushed through the air between them. Someday, I'll be buried here too, as will my daughter, and all those who come after. But not this day. Why are you telling me this? Because when you die, I plan to have you buried here as a Schnee. It's the least I can do to mend my mistakes. Marcus shifted his chin in defiance. You'll die alone, just like them. All of them. No, Nicholas shook his head. Not alone. Do you hear that, my son? Marcus whirled with a kiss. He did hear something in the distance over his own pounding pulse. High above, a low roar, like an approaching storm. Marcus! That's the sound of all your plans, all your schemes come crashing down. Nicholas tittered softly. I expected no less of that boy. He truly does amaze me sometimes. Cleaves came down and split the floor. This really is your last chance to surrender, son. A gauntlet-clad hand reached out for him. You're beaten. It's useless to resist. Submit, and I'll see that you're treated fairly. Black gritted his teeth. How dare he lavish praise upon that oaf? It wasn't fair. The glory should be his. This was his birthright, no one else's. It wasn't fair. Everyone looked down on him. Everyone mocked him. Well, he'd show them all. Every last one of those them. He'd make them pay. Never again would he kneel. Bloodshot eyes rose. I'd rather drown in my own blood. So be it. Marcus lunged. Nicholas didn't move. Someone moved for him. A streak of gold slammed him aside. Marcus latched on with his semblance regardless, intent on draining them dry. However this interloper was, he wouldn't stop with their semblance. Not this time. He'd take their aura, their life, everything. He'd have their soul. He would feed on their death and grow strong, heal from his wounds, and escape this place. I've got you. Your power is mine. Nicholas Schnee didn't answer. He didn't have to. No. It was Naruto Uzumaki who frowned down at him, shining like the sun. So you do. You're going to regret that. A thorn of dread plucked at Black's heart, not a shadow clone. One of those would have popped immediately. This one stood strong, scowling at him as though he were some naughty child. No, it didn't matter. This was even better. What he'd wanted all along. This man had a power unlike any other. It would be his. He'd take it all. What a fool he was. You idiot! Delirious from all the blood he'd lost, Marcus could only laugh. You should have let the old man die. With your strength, I'll be unstoppable. No, a god! He expected fear, terror, begging at the least, but he received none of those things. You're not a god. 10 arms spread wide, leaving himself hopelessly open for the attack. You're just a vicious little parasite eating out with jealousy and envy and longing for the lives of others. He took a step forward, then another, yet another now. You feed on them, you eat their semblances, their very souls, the memory of love, loss, and birth and death, and joy and sorrow. I'll feed on you too. Go ahead. Naruto's hands slapped open and gripping his wrist, reeling him in, a fish on the hook. Try to take my chakra. And scarlet streams of light snarled between the two of them. Take my soul, my memories, all of it. But I hope you've got a big appetite. The ghost of a grin plucked at the corner. Because I've lived a long life, and I've seen things. Marcus blanched. He was bluffing surely. I've killed bigger men than you. I'm not afraid. With this power, he would kill countless more. Laughter leaped from his lips as scarlet lights crept over his body. Already he felt himself healing, his aura recovering. One of his stolen semblances kicked, regrowing his lost limb. He used it to latch on tighter, denying his prey any chance he might have had to flee. You should be. Naruto staggered but a little as crimson chakra continued to bleed forth from his chest. I walked away from the last great shinobi war. He grit his teeth as wild bloody red veins scrawled across his face. I survived when so many perished. I will keep surviving, if only because I can't bear to see their faces again. Wait, something was wrong. This power, it burned. You think you know what death is, Marcus? You don't. His prey pivoted now, clamping down on both shoulders to deny him any hope of escape. But I do. I've seen it. More times than you can count. Marcus pulled harder with his semblance, to no avail. I watched the demon tear his enemies apart with nothing but a knife in his teeth. What madness was this? How was he alive? How he should be dead by now. Why wasn't he dead? I stood by as my teacher walked to his doom, never knowing I'd see him again, never getting to say goodbye. This went beyond mere resistance, more than simply stubbornness. What was this? Why couldn't he control this power? It was his now. I held the good man in my arms and listened as he choked out his last breath, as he faded away, moment by moment, until nothing remained of them. No life, no soul, just death. Something was actively pushing back against him, eating away at him, corroding his very soul. I fought a woman who could not die and live to tell a tale. Naruto thundered at him, eyes aglow in the gloom. I have seen things you wouldn't believe. His forehead slammed against this. I have lost things you would never understand. Marcus tried to speak, tried to announce him. His swollen tongue failed him. And I know things. Still, his adversary's voice roared in his ear, a terrible snarl that drowned out the very world itself. Terrible things, secrets that must never be told, knowledge that must never be spoken, knowledge that makes little parasites like you burn. All the world scorched red, a coruscating crimson pillar burning up into the clouds to strike at the sky itself. You think you know what chakra is? You think you can take it? No, too late, too little too late. Marcus realized his mistake. The blonde had let him be caught, allowed him to be drained, because he knew what would happen. This was a power unique to him, a gift that couldn't be controlled by anyone else, and in trying to wrestle it away from himself, he'd spelled his doom. His every vein was a fire now, yet still the power came. It was a flood of fire boiling his flesh, blistering his skin. He couldn't stop, couldn't cut the connection. Something held it wide open. Chakra came crashing through his veins, through a body not equipped to handle it. Memories burned in his head, memories that weren't his own. He felt his very personality being overwritten. So, come on then, the jerky howled. Take it! If you think you're man enough, have it! And cracks sprawled across the assassin's skin, fire red fractures etching towards his face. Too much. He couldn't think, couldn't breathe. It hurts! Make it stop! He could feel his body breaking, melting, and being forged into something else. It felt like dying and being reborn anew. He was becoming something else, someone. Death would claim him first. Even as he tried to push the power back out, he couldn't. He lacked the chakra coils to command the divine energies now coursing through him. And so they continued to build and build, then build some more. Red light bled through his skin, burst through bones, shattering his legs completely. He slumped and tried to let go, but Naruto clung to him still. Here at last, poor, Marcus Black began for mercy. No more! Stop! Naruto roared over his panicked cries. You have it all! Willow heard the explosion long before she saw the fire. It began a low tremor that rattled the manor grounds beneath her feet like an earthquake rattling her teeth. She had all of an instant to look down before the trembling ceased. As quickly as it began, the world fell away and truly silent. A small frown plucked at the corner of her mouth. She craned her neck and looked back at the manor, now eerily quiet. Gods above, Willow hated the quiet, if only because it left her alone with her thoughts. She'd been asked, begged really, by Naruto to wait outside under heavy guard. Indeed, she was surrounded by a phalanx of clones while he dealt with whatever assaulted the manor. Blast it, she was useless like this. All her new powers aside, she was exhausted. If she'd gone in with him as she was now, she would have been, and the world erupted. Without neither word nor warning, a towering pillar of crimson light burst out of the Schnee manor. Willow flung up an arm against it, blazing eyes squinting up as the blinding swell of light kept going, slamming through the shields to pierce the very clouds themselves. Limed in red light, she gazed up at it with awe. The sky itself shimmered scarlet for a moment, and then, with an audible whoosh, it rushed away from whence it came. What was that? Naruto limped out, covered in blood, none of it his own. Nicholas leaned against his shoulder, looking possibly haggard. But for his daughter, he smiled. Hello, dear. You look lovely tonight. Willow sniffled softly. You dolts! Her eyes were burning. Naruto wasn't sure what to make of that. He wasn't entirely certain he liked it either, if only because she looked fit to fall over at a moment's notice. He didn't much care about her new eyes, only that she was safe. He'd wrapped her leg for good measure, but it seemed she'd already healed. Strange, she shouldn't be able to heal that quickly. Did it truly matter if she'd gained a new power in the process, so long as she lived? No, none of it mattered. They would limp their way back to the others, the frozen hazel in tow, and be done with God's awful night. Don't blame you, Kurama interjected with a jaw-popping yawn. At least we're rid of Marcus. Serves him right for trying to eat me. Do you think he escaped? We didn't find a body? Brat, I don't think there's a body left to find. Perhaps it was cruel to simply rip Marcus apart like that, to break him down to the molecular level and deny him any chance of return. Maybe it was, but he had to be sure. The man was too dangerous to be left alive. He needed to be dealt with personally, just as he needed to see his death, and he had. Marcus Black had blown apart, torn asunder from the eldritch energies he tried to absorb. It was his own fault, really. One does not simply try to absorb a jinchuriki. You're staring. Willow's voice plucked him through his thoughts. Naruto blinked, drawn back to reality by her words. I guess I am. Is it there? Is it these? She touched a hand to her shimmering eyes. I'm sorry, I can't control them. Something in the way she said those words worried him. He reached out and clasped her hands in his. She startled a little, but didn't pull away. Actually, I think it suits you. He flashed her what he hoped was a disarming grin. You've got the whole suffer me now looking going for you. Pretty badass, I think. Willow snorted. How unladylike of her. He loved it. Such a dolt. Maybe, he chuckled, but you seem to think I'm your dolt. Hunger burned in her eyes. You certainly are. There! Willow barely had a chance to brace herself before a crimson blur slammed into her chest. Naruto jolted to his feet. Blue eyes flashed, thinking it was an attack. It wasn't. He plunked back down when he realized Willow wasn't in any real danger. Quite the contrary. Well, at least they didn't need to move now. Nicholas clapped him on the back. Imagine his surprise when Cinder and the rest of them came to them. I'm sorry, their daughter bawled into Willow's skirt, tucking her little head against her mother's stomach. I didn't mean to distract you back there. I'm sorry. Before his very eyes, his partner slouched a little. Her gaze softened. It's all right, dear. She reached down with trembling arms and pulled the frightened girl into a warm embrace. There. Aww. Naruto propped himself up with his false arm just in time to see Sienna. Well, he saw Ribbon first. She was carrying the poor girl, but it was difficult to miss her. She was awake and angry now, wild and struggling in her minder's grasp. It only intensified when she saw him sitting on the manor steps, golden eyes lit up like fireworks. You're alive! Was that her concern? Huh? He thumbed his bloody nose. You know something like this wouldn't kill me. Of course not. Ribbon clicked her tongue, smiling only a little. You're just too damn stubborn. Naruto winked. I'll take that as a compliment, crazy bird. Ribbon rolled her eyes and set Sienna down. The fawness didn't budge. Such a stubborn little thing. She'd never be honest with herself. Naruto raised his arms. Hug. Her reaction startled him. Rather than retreat, she slammed into his chest and knocked him back down. Naruto sighed and pulled her close, hiding her face from view. Sienna didn't cry. No, certainly not. She was a big girl. If anyone said so, they were just imagining it. And if anyone heard her hiccup a little or whimper, then surely they were hearing things. Yes, that was it. Good girl. Willow looked up at last, only to find everyone staring at her. Your eyes. Oh dear. I am sorry. Ospen leaned against his cane, looking older than ever before. This was not a fate I would wish upon you, Miss Schnee. In that moment, he looked positively haggard. It would appear you've been chosen. Tai Yang swore. Summer looked away. Oz? Wait, Crowbot. So she's a maiden now? Raven inhaled sharply. Damn it, she's leaped past me again. Fate? What fate? And what the hell was a maiden? Still holding Sienna close, Naruto forced himself to sit up. What are you talking about? The headmaster seemed to sag beneath their gaze. I suppose an explanation is due. Later, Willow flung up a hand to forestall a long-winded story. I'm entirely too sober for this, and it is late. We're tired. She jerked a thumb over her shoulder to the frozen statue that was Hazel Reinhardt. Our girls are tired. We're tired. Take our prisoner and be rid of him. We'll talk about this come morning. Naruto grinned despite himself. Tomorrow sounds good. I think we've all earned a bit of rest after tonight. Osman blinked. Surely you jest. This matter is of the utmost importance and we cannot delay. Summer brindled. Osman, please. Now's really not the time. We can do this later, right? Agreed. Nicholas gripped his shoulder. Let them have their moment, old friend. His grip tightened there just a little. After all, they've earned it. They've been thinking, why were they drinking again? Why were they celebrating something? Naruto couldn't even begin to remember. He only knew that Willow had dragged him to her room, that she was currently sat in his lap, and he was very comfortable. Part of him vaguely recalled sending Cinder and Sienna to bed, but little more. The manor had suffered some damage on the lower levels, but the main wing was thankfully intact, and other words, big words that he couldn't think of right now. He'd drunk too much. But after a night like tonight, maybe a little liquid courage was needed. Huh. He laid his head back, reveling in the pleasant buzz that filled his ears. This feels pretty nice. She laid one ear against his chest. It certainly does. Willow didn't do subtle. Perhaps she had once. Before all this, perhaps she simply wasn't in the mood. Naruto didn't much blame her. She wanted a pleasant memory, something to drown out the hell she'd experienced. Jackass had tried to rape her every mind. No matter how much you trained your body or even your spirit, that was still vulnerable. That was bound to mess up your mind. It messed you up inside. And time would tell if that madman left any lasting scars on her psyche. Damn Jackass. Just thinking of him wrapped his thoughts into an angry knot. He'd killed him himself if he wasn't already dead, and he was dead. He would have sensed him otherwise. No man could survive those injuries. His face burned off, body skewered and flattened by rock and steel alike, to say nothing of the storm she'd unleashed on the ashes. Aura couldn't protect you against all that, not for long. He was dead, had to be, and if by some miracle he wasn't, well, something ugly shifted in his chest. He'd kill him again, as many times as it took. Together, Naruto blinked, drawn from his reverie by Willow's words. Come again? From now on, whatever happens, whoever stands in our way, her hands cupped his whiskered cheeks gently, whatever we face it together now, all right? A pleading note entered her voice. Never forsake me, and I will never forsake you. Was she still on about that? No way was he leaving now? Not a chance in hell. Nope, he laughed aloud. You're stuck with me now. She winced. Even if I lose my way? Yep. A soft sigh permeated the darkness of her chambers. You're turning into summer, you bastard. He wrapped an arm around her waist. Pretty sure she still wants to bang my arm. Willow slapped it, then paused. Huh, it's warm. So it is. He flexed his fingers, considering the metal digits. Watts thinks he'll be able to make a more practical application of it, his skin and all. She perked up a little at that. He'll be able to feel with it. Should be able to, he nodded. It'll be nice, I guess. Without a word of warning, Willow sat up in his lap. Speaking of feeling, his sixth sense shrilling a warning, but he didn't dodge, not this time. When she bent down, he remained perfectly still. Her lips touched his, mouth molding against him marvelously, but only for a moment. With a quick twist of his lips, he whirled and pinned her to the bed. She made a noise of contentment as he lowered himself to her and reciprocated her affection. I want you. The words stumbled out of her in a rush, and she bowled on before something could hold her back. I'm tired of dancing around this, of the interruptions of everything. We're so busy trying to solve everyone's problems. Let's just live. She pushed against him again and laid her hands atop his chest. I want you tonight. Be with me. Naruto stiffened. It was the first time someone had asked something like this of him in, well, forever. Even with his mind addled by drink as it was, he was sure he'd never be a proposition like this. They were both of them tired and dirty, exhausted from the trials they'd suffered. Each had shed blood tonight, yet it was only here, now, that they felt truly alive. Ironic, really. Willow kissed him again, then. It made a world of difference. No one to interrupt them, no anxiety to hold them back, no explosions, no villains, no nothing, only passion. Her teeth nipped at his lower lip, drawing blood, and he returned the favor in kind, ruthlessly plundering her mouth with his tongue. She gave a little cry at that, and his blood boiled anew. It was a physical act of will to let her, and so she crashed back to the bed and sprawled out beneath him, long hair, a white halo above her head, chest heaving with every breath. Her blouse had come undone, revealing a tantalizing expanse of skin. He bent to kiss it, and elicited another whine from her. Not there, she gasped. Up here? Kiss me? Sure, but what's stopping you? Her eyes blazed with fire. Then her lips were warm on his, burning with desire. He'd not expected that. If their brief kiss before had sent a spark, then this was a raging flame. Her arms looped around his neck as his hands settled around her waist for better purchase. Firm fingers got hold of her ear and pulled her close. She didn't care for his clothes, nor he hers. What could not be removed was simply ripped away by strong hands and lips alike. Fine garments were shredded apart without a care in the world, leaving only scrapes behind. Willow ran a hand down her flank and met him halfway. His fingers hooked in a waistline, in the waistline of her underwear and took them off. She did the same unto his trousers and tilted herself against him. A gasp pierced the air, followed by a string of rather questionable syllables. The sudden cursing fit startled Naruto, and she realized what she said a moment later. Naruto wasn't sure who started laughing, only that one of them did. She doubled against him, bare breast smashing against his chest. He scarcely noticed. It felt freeing to just laugh like this, as if the last of their chains had well and truly been stripped away. There could be no other word for it. Here at last, they were finally free. When he looked up, Willow's eyes were blazing again. My apologies, she sighed, whipping a merciful tear from her eye. I lost control of myself for a moment there. A delighted laugh leaped from her lips as he pinned her down again. One leg curled around his waist, pulling him close. They wrestled a moment more before she got the better of him and wound up atop, startling him yet again. She gasped but a little and pushed closer, planting herself in his lap. His hand settled against her lips, causing her to hum anew. Then she began to move. Nah, that's fine. He couldn't help but smile a little as they fell into a rhythmic movement. I kinda like this side of you. You should be honest more often. Then I will. She rolled her hips against him, creating a fresh spark of desire. Never leave me, my love. Her voice peaked with fervor. I love you. I cherish you. Stay with me forever. Well, that's a little corny. Oh, Wow, she could really move those hips, but I'm definitely not going anywhere. Willow laughed at that, and it was the purest sound in the world. You'd best not, Naruto, or I'll be incredibly cross with you. Together, they fell into the throes of passion, and there was only sweet bliss. Previews. Time waits for no man. It marches ever onward without fail. Of course, the same can be said of humanity itself. The last of her clothes smacked him in the face. Hey, something wonderful has happened. Naruto blinked. Willow took his hand, guided it to her stomach. Naruto felt his jaw clicked open. Oh wait, are you actually? It's still early. She can't be stopped. You're all going to die. Who decided that? You are not of this world, boy. Nope. Naruto cracked his knuckles as he regarded the specter before him. Definitely not. But I've put an awful lot of work into Remnant. Willow's fond of telling me that these days you're not the first to come to my doorstep. Certainly not the first to threaten me. He offered his back to the enemy and turned to face the broken moon above, arms spread wide. Oh, there have been so many before. He tittered softly at the memory. And what you got to ask yourself? What happened to them? Where did all those enemies go, I wonder? Is there a point to this? Are you dictating your bloody obituary to me? Don't worry, I'm working my way towards it. In short, what I'm saying, quick as a flash, he pivoted in place, grinning from ear to ear. Hello, I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Basically, run. End of chapter 14.